product life cycle is something that each product, good or service, progresses through, where they start small at the beginning, they garner an audience, they grow. If they are successful, they experience a period of maturity where their sales are high, and eventually they lose their popularity and must decide whether to discontinue the product or to relaunch themselves with a new twist. So by the end of the talk, you should be able to identify the 5 different stages of the product life cycle: the introduction, growth, maturity, decline, and decision point. You should be able to understand how companies market themselves differently depending on the stage that they're in, and then be able to apply the concepts from this lesson to a real product and determine what stage is it in and whether its marketing is appropriate. So the product life cycle involves the time on the x-axis of the chart and the number of sales on the y-axis. So some products will last longer than others, some will have higher sales than others, but the idea is everything starts small as soon as they're launched, slowly improves, eventually it catches on and grows in popularity, and then it reaches its peak. For some places, for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs, their peak and their maturity has been very high. For other companies, the peak is not as long, and then eventually companies become less popular, consumers move on to the next big thing, and it reaches the decision point about whether or not to continue or not. So most products pass through this basic shape, and here would be an example of that shape. You can see it starts small during the introduction, then it starts to grow, it peaks during the maturity phase, and then it declines. The brand might decide to sell it at a smaller amount, to extend it and change it, or to totally discontinue. So the introduction stage, this is when the product's first launched, and it starts slowly because initially people will be skeptical. The companies must raise awareness so that people know that it's for sale. So the advertising is key to make people aware that this product's now on the market and it exists. Sometimes, for example, in the grocery store, companies will pay for a shelf allowance or a slotting fee to ensure that their product is displayed in a prominent place at eye level or on an end cap display at the end of the aisle. That way, shoppers making their normal rounds see the new product and choose to purchase it. You can sell goods on consignment, whereas instead of the producer selling it to the retailer who then sells it to the consumer, it's sold on consignment, meaning the product shipped to the store, people can buy it, but the producer will only get the money when the retailer sells it. And the focus at this point is trendsetters, early adopters, the people who tend to gravitate to new ideas and influence others. Then there's the growth stage, an explosive increase in sales. Consumers begin to notice the product, but also the competition pays attention and may start to copy it. The advertising focuses on changing preferences so that people who may use a competing brand will switch to this new one, and the creation of a brand that will support this product. The maturity phase is when growth flattens out. At this point, good advertising might be a brand reminder. There's a lot of sales, it's very popular, so it's not necessary to spend as much money on advertising. The most money is spent during the growth phase. And there might be a little loss as consumers switch to offerings from the competition or new products, and producers might also try to become more efficient and lower their costs so that their profit margin can increase. And then sales fall. In the decline phase, tastes normally change over time, new products are more interesting, and at this point advertising might be increased or promotions might be used to boost sales. Finally, there's a decision. What do we do next? You could maintain the product at a lower level of sales. For example, Kellogg's has many cereals. Some of them aren't particularly popular, but they still make money, although it's a small amount. You can choose to discontinue the product and devote your energies to something else, or you can relaunch or redesign the product. The company will ask, what's the best use of these resources? How can we get the most bang for our buck? And that will inform what decision they take. So here is a bit of a commercial used by Chrysler. It's called Imported from Detroit. In 2008, the auto industry was in trouble. Sales were dropping for many vehicles, so they created an imported from Detroit, because imported, the connotation was high quality. From Detroit was American made, so it had a positive message to it, and they paid for M&M to appear in a flashy new commercial as part of their relaunch.
I got a question for you. What does this city know about luxury? Huh? What does a town that's been to hell and back know about the finer things in life? Well, I'll tell you. More than most. You see, it's the hottest fires that make the hardest steel. Add hard work and conviction, and the know-how that runs generations deep in every last one of us. That's who we are. That's our story. Now, it's probably not the one you've been reading in papers. The one being written by folks who've never even been here and don't know what we're capable of. Because when it comes to luxury, it's as much about where it's from as who it's for. Now, we're from America, but this isn't New York City, or the Windy City, or Sin City, and we're certainly no one's Emerald City.
This is the Motor City, and this is what we do.
So why would you bother relaunching? This usually requires a new marketing strategy and a lot of energy. So businesses need to understand that the peak is over, the maturity phase is over, and it's going to be downhill from here. So they have to decide what to do with the product. If you don't move on, it can lead to the business stagnating, and it will become less relevant over time as consumers begin to ignore the brand. And even successful products will reach the end of their lifespan. For example, the General Motors had great success with the Hummer, and they would boast about how big it was. However, during the 2008 Great Recession, the high fuel consumption was not appropriate, so it had to be discontinued. Some products are going to have a longer lifespan than others. For example, a piece of machinery that might be used in a factory will last a long time, but an app that you download on your phone will last a shorter time. Great brands will have a very, very long maturity phase as they stand the test of time. There's ways to extend the life cycle, finding new users, uh, you know, launching overseas and finding new customers in a new country, uh, targeting an older demographic, getting people who use it once a week to use it more often, finding new uses, uh, such as taking a popular word processing software that might be replaced by Google Docs and using it to create a productivity enterprise software for a business, modifying the product. So for example, modifying a car so that it becomes an e-car. So just a reminder of the marketing mix. So the product, this might be the design improvements that happen at the beginning during the introduction stage, or it could also include refinements, new features or benefits that are added during the decline phase. Um, Pricing, usually in the maturity phase, price might be lowered. You tend to you tend to make more money because it's a new product and people are interested in the introduction or the growth phase, and then you look to lower your costs in the maturity phase, and perhaps lower the price then. The one exception would be a penetration pricing scheme where the product enters the market with a very low price in order to encourage consumers to use it. A promotion is going to happen a lot during the introduction and especially during the growth stage, and then it may happen during the decline stage. And the placement, that's very important in the introduction phase because you're gradually getting it out there, people need to see it, and then as the growth phase begins, the product needs to be widely available. So um, an example of how could you apply what you've learned today to a case study is, well, self-driving cars, where are they in the life cycle? And we probably were learning about them. We're learning which brands make them, how they work. There's a few trendsetters who are starting to own Teslas. However, it's hard for Tesla to sell a lot of cars because they have not been able to ramp up their capacity. So I would say right now they're probably in the middle of the introduction phase, and it's actually been a longer, extended introduction phase as people get more and more accustomed to new electric cars. And then the next step, you can take a pause now if you need to take a break. The next step will be some of the non-traditional product life cycles that are the exception to the rules we discussed here. As we study the non-traditional product life cycles, we want to be able to compare and contrast these from each other and also the original product life cycle. So as a reminder, things begin with the introduction phase. A new product is introduced. It grows. More and more people use it. The maturity phase is when sales start to flatten out and it's reached its peak of popularity. Then there is a decline and a decision point whether or not the product should continue. However, there's some exceptions to that. There would be a fad, a niche, a seasonal. So to think back to 2016 when everyone was playing Pokemon Go. It came out of nowhere. Many people downloaded the app, and now it's much less popular. It might be an example of a fad. So these fads, they're products that take off quickly, they peak and decline quickly. Usually there's something trendy or timely about it that's not conducive to a long lifespan. Rubik's Cubes, fidget spinners, certain TV shows that do well for one season on Netflix, or certain one-hit wonders. The marketing goal is to make as much money as possible and move on when the fad's over. So you sort of raise awareness, you push it a little bit, and then you really just let peer pressure drive sales and try to make as much money as possible before discontinuing it and moving on to the next company, the next product. So toy companies, they want one fad for 1 year, and then the next summer they need the next Christmas season, they need a new one. Here's how the fad product life cycle looks. It's the same shape, except there's a really big spike and a really quick drop. The slopes and the growth and the decline stages are very steep. Toys, musical acts, restaurants, fashion, some places change over from month to month or season to season. Technology, an app, a phone gets out there very, very quickly and then just as quickly fades away. So as you can see, it's very steep.
My name's Maddie, and I rainbow loom. I made earrings for Mum. I think they really suit her. My brother Max rainbow looms. He made the coolest collar for Rocky. Rocky is a big rainbow loom fan. Max taught Dad. He made this keyring. He thinks it's cool. My sister likes her awesome hat, but Polly likes it more. What will you make with rainbow loom? The original rainbow loom, now available at leading retailers.
Next, we have niche markets, products that are targeted to a very specific group of customers. They tend to be very, very loyal. The total size of the market is small, but they have very particular needs. They will stick with this product. They tend to be heavy users. They're willing to buy a lot of this product. So it might be able to make up the fact that there are less customers with the fact that each customer uses it a little more. Such as here, there's a gluten-free bread showing. Not everyone's gluten-free, but those who are really need to buy a lot of gluten-free products. Here's how the chart looks. It starts low, and then the slope is very, very small, very, very flat. And it also tends not to decline because it's an item, for example, like the gluten-free bread that people need, and it's not going to decline as much. It's not a big crowd, but it's a slow and steady sale. So some food items, organic foods, different types of foods, hobbies. The people who like to knit will buy many types of yarn. People who play sports will buy all kinds of equipment, apps for a specific purpose. Cultural products, for example, an Ethiopian restaurant in Toronto is not going to appeal to everyone, but it might. The one on Gerrard is going to have a small group of very, very loyal customers. CrossFit is an example of a niche market with a sort of a sport and it has a bit of a cultural element to it as well.
The one line I always liked was, I'm going to do today what other people aren't willing to, so I can do tomorrow what other people can't. I always loved that line of like whenever I'm training by myself, kind of always like running lines like that through my head when I'm suffering. Just knowing that, trusting that the hard work I'm putting in right now, it'll pay off. Maybe not today, it might feel like shit tomorrow, but it'll pay off in the end. What are you doing when no one's looking?
And lastly, we come to seasonal products. They have a season when they are demanded and then an off season when they are not. Usually it's because of the weather, or it can be because of a certain theme, such as pumpkin spice lattes will be very popular in around the Halloween and Thanksgiving season. Sometimes marketers might match two groups of products with corresponding seasonal life cycles to maintain year-round sales. So David's Teas is going to sell iced teas during the summer. The Sign of the Skier is going to sell patio furniture in the summer so that there is sales when the ski season is over. And the product cycle is a series of waves that go up and down. Here's an example of perhaps a summer camp. Obviously, the sales are going to be through the roof in the summer, and then the operations will be almost shut down in the winter. You might see sometimes that a company pairs with another season. So if a ski resort like Blue Mountain had strong winter sales, they might look to open themselves up for all-terrain biking, camping, hiking, ropes courses, golfing, other kinds of summer activities, so they don't have that decline. The benefit is that these products tend to be demanded over the years, but they have their time and their place. So you can think of in Canada how in August the hockey equipment is for sale, and that's when you see the ads, and then they're discontinued in January because everyone playing already has their equipment. You see back to school ads for Staples, but then that stops because after people purchase their school supplies, it's not needed. So you might want to think of a product that falls into one of these categories: a fad, a seasonal product, a niche. Here you have a small barbecue grill. How would someone market a barbecue in your mind? If you can't think of anything, pick the example of a barbecue. And when should it be marketed? How should it be distributed? Should it be distributed year-round? Should it be distributed a certain way? You're probably not going to market it the same way as you would a more commonly used product. And those are the three non-traditional product life cycles.